With board games, there are certain designers and production companies who will generate a huge amount of hype for a game, even when just the title's been announced. People get excited and they know that they're waiting for something that's going to be a continuation of a career or a legacy of solid games or interesting things. And then sometimes a game comes out of nowhere and generates the same waves. It impresses and excites people. And this is one of those games. But we're going to find out today, is it going to be blood on the sand or sand in your underpants? It's Spartacus, a game of blood and treachery. This game comes with all the hallmarks of something that's going to be terrible. It's by a company I've not heard of, a designer I've not heard of. It's based on a TV show that can be described as basically softcore porn and violence in a soap opera. And it costs surprisingly little, making it look like it's just a quick TV cash-in. However, TV games or games based on TV series don't have to be bad. There are good ones out there. And when you open the box, you'll find that the production is very, very good. Matching, in fact, some of the better companies out there. You've got a good board, you've got decent cardstock, you've got very, very good miniatures. It's all nicely presented, it's all quite clearly put together, and while it uses stills from the TV show left, right and centre, it looks cohesive, it looks fine. It's not like they're just going cheap-ass and reusing all of the art. It's a decent production, it looks really nice. But how does it play? Well, it's mixed. If there's one word for Spartacus, it is anticlimax. Because the game goes like this. The first phase, you get to play cards, and the cards you're playing are basically stab-in-the-back cards. You get to be a complete arse to everybody, and they get to be a complete arse to you, and you've got some cards to protect yourself, and you have to, and this is the cool bit, you have to get help from other players to play the more expensive cards. So you have to form alliances and break them, or you can form an alliance with somebody, maybe pay them some money to help you, and then stab them right in the back with the same card you've got them to help you play. You can be a real bastard, or you can set up alliances, or you can placate people and bribe, and this is all really kind of cool. But what it really boils down to is you want to get your influence as high as possible, because the higher you get it, the easier it is to play cards, and if you get it to a certain number, usually 12, you've won the game. But you kind of just end up playing like this. Play a card, play a card, play a card. I've won. Because if nobody else can stop you, if you've stored up your cards, if you're last in turn order, if everybody else has already used all of their blocking cards, you can just play a series of cards and your influence goes up and you can win. And the way that ends the game is boring, because everybody around the table has this reaction, and this has happened when I've played this several times. You play the card and go, I've got 12 influence, I've won, and everybody goes, oh. There's no screaming in annoyance or cheering in victory, you just kind of quietly won. And this is the problem. It is possible for the game to go to a tie and then you have a final arena fight, and that would be better, but it just kind of ends. I don't know. The way the game works after that is you've got that initial phase of playing cards against each other, or you can cash them in for money, and then in the next turn there's a market phase where you can buy and sell between each other, but to be honest, nobody usually bothers, because after that you've got an auction, and in the auction you do a closed fist auction, and you bid for 4 different cards, and, well, a card's equal to the number of players, rather, I think it is. You bid on the different cards, and the cards give you extra equipment or new gladiators or slaves or what have you, and that's cool. I like closed fist auctions because you can bluff people and you can drive a price too high. You know, it's fun. But again, it's kind of wonky, because if a really good gladiator shows up in the first turn, and not many people, well, your players don't have that much money, and so you will probably win that really good gladiator for next to nothing, and then you've got the best gladiator really early on, and it throws everything out. There's no feeling of progression, there's no feeling of upgrading and training your fighters. You can give them equipment, and if they win fights they can become favoured and become a champion, but that tends to happen really slowly. You feel like you should be training them up and improving their skills, and you just can't. You just basically get a decent gladiator, get a second one as a backup, and you're set. I don't know. The whole point of you being a gladiatorial school just is lost in this game. And then after that, next phase is another closed fist auction, and you're bidding on hosting. Now the host gets an influence point, which is really important, and gets to decide who goes into the arena. Now this is cool, because you invite people to fight, and then you actually have, at the end of every turn, a gladiatorial combat in a very simple dice-based miniatures game type way. And that's pretty decent. I mean, it works as a system, with the exception of the initiative rolls, because you roll your speed and you add up all the dice. And that means that quite often fights devolve into the following thing. The slower player can't catch the faster one, and the faster one can hit them and run away. Which means that you can kind of just chip away at the other fighter and slowly attrition them to death, and it's kind of crap. It can work better with a variant or a tweak to the blue dice. That's what we play, a slightly different version, where you compare the highest to lowest rolls like you would with the fighting. And that does help, because the underdog can sometimes get the initiative and get a hit in first, and that can mix things up, but quite often fights are foregone conclusions. And it takes the excitement out. You can place bids on the fights, and that's great. That's really fun. You can have decapitations and injuries and so on. And at the end, if somebody's still alive and they're the loser, the host can do thumbs up, thumbs down, kill them or not, take bribes to influence their decision. That's cool as well. And this is what frustrates me about Spartacus. It's got some great bits to it, some bits that are hilarious and make you feel like you're in control of someone's destiny and you're one of the cruel Romans, and you can execute someone at a stroke, and you can bribe and extort and lie and cheat and steal and be a complete bastard. And those bits are fun. But the problem is in that initial influence phase, really, because when you get towards the end of the game, mostly it's just bash the leader, bash the leader. If you stay in the middle of the pack and you're late in turn order and you can make a run for victory, you can just win and nobody finds it entertaining, quite simply, when that happens. The game needs a better end game. It needs more ability to train and upgrade your fighters. It needs to have some way for the better gladiators, the better cards, not coming in at the start and maybe coming in later on. Maybe that could have been tied to influence, that you can't own a really good gladiator if your influence is too low, or something like that. I don't know. The auctions are fine, the hosting's fun, the bidding and betting on fights is great. The fights themselves, not brilliant, but can be improved with that variant immeasurably. The players have different powers, it's asymmetrical. And that sort of works, only one of them is kind of better than the rest, because most of them it's, discard 3 gladiators, discard 3 slaves, and you can get influence this way. One guy, you discard 3 guards, and guards they're not something you buy, you just get them from the influence deck draw. So potentially you can get them for free. If you're lucky, you can draw 3 and discard them for an influence, and while guards are useful, they're easier to come by, so that's not really balanced. I don't know. It's a game that has got so many people raving about it and saying how great it is, and it's not all that. Somebody described it as being Munchkin in sandals. That's not too far from the truth in some ways, because of the card play, and the card play should be cleverer. It's not just about getting yourself more gold. It's not just about getting influence. The card play should be something like the way Cthulhu Gloom works, where your cards will help you, but they'll also help someone else. There should be more double-edged swords and more decisions to make, where you're not just going, I'm going to get more gold, I'm going to get more influence, I'm going to take influence from you. There needs to be more interesting Machiavellian cards. There needs to be just more, quite simply. The game as a basic system works all right, and if you're into that sort of bash your leader card play, then this is something a bit more meaty. And the different phases of the game hang together well, but it's just the bits where it counts to me are just lacking. The end game is just sad, to be honest. Yeah, it has high points, and they are really brought down by some very basic problems that cause the high points just to then fall into an utter abyss of dull and unfortunate kind of disappointment. So, in short, is it a good game or not? Is it an entertaining game or not? Is it a fun game or not? It can be fun, it can be entertaining. Those are very much based on your games group. If you're into a games group who like table talk and insults and bribery and threats and being clever in how you can be mean to each other, and persuasion and sort of that diplomatic element, if you like that sort of table talk and that sort of thing, you'll get more out of this game. But if that's not your sort of thing, this game won't work for you. And if your games group just wants to play this fairly straight up, it will probably fall a bit flat. It should be cleverer, is my way of finishing this. It's not a bad game, but it is a game that when it fails horribly. And when it succeeds, it can be a blast. It just needs to be able to sustain itself to that end point and to an exciting conclusion, and in my opinion it just doesn't. So Spartacus, a game of blood and treachery. Kind of put the boot in a little bit, but there we go. I did buy the expansion. I'm not going to cover that right now. I need to play a couple more games to see if it makes any real difference. At present, I don't feel the expansion really changes the game much. So, unfortunately, Spartacus, not exactly terrible, but really, after a couple of games, not as impressive as everyone's making out. Anyway, thanks very much for watching, and I will see you next time.